Okay, so my most recent reread in my spate of rereads until I can finally afford new books is The Prefect by Alastair Reynolds. So this book has a different title now, which is really interesting. So Aurora Rising is the title of this book now. So this book came out in 2007, and I think it was 2014. He re-released it under the new title Aurora Rising, which is really hard to say if you don't want to slur your words and mumble. Um, because at that point, I think it was 2014, he came out with, or he was writing two more books to make this into a trilogy, and he wanted it to be called the Prefect Dreyfus Emergencies, I think is the name of the trilogy. So he changed the name of the first book, which is really cool. But I really like this sort of very shiny. I don't know if you can see how shiny this is. This original book from 2007. So yeah, so like I said, I have read this before, so this was a reread, sort of in anticipation of potentially reading the new books that came out this year and 2 years ago, which are the only Alastair Reynolds books I have not read. I've got a whole shelf plus a bit more shelf dedicated to him because I think he's my favorite sci-fi writer, easily. Yeah, so the Prefect. It takes place in the same world as the Revelation Space trilogy. Well, I guess it's more than a trilogy now. But so the main world that Alastair Reynolds is known for. So if you haven't read that, like there's a lot of references and not world building but world referencing in this book that if you haven't read the Revelation Space trilogy series, you might struggle with or might find confusing. But on its own, it was meant to be just a standalone novel. It is a brilliant detective story set in space. So the main character, Prefect he's a prefect, which is like it's like he's a detective, but it's like a police officer, a space police officer. And yeah, this Tom Dreyfus guy who's a bit of a Mary Sue. He's a bit of a maverick and he'll bend the rules and stuff, but he's very principled and he won't break any major rules, and he's like on the side of democracy, and he's very much he wants to solve his case, and if people wrong him, he's not going to be vengeful or try and get back at them. He doesn't care. He just wants the info so he can solve the case. And he's a very good character. Kind of like a stereotypical tropey character, but I think that's really good in this setting. So yeah, it's like space cops solving a space mystery, but it's Alastair Reynolds and it's in this world that he's already set up, and it's very connected to his other works. And the way it's laid out is just brilliant. It's very suspenseful. It's very there's sort of nothing is mentioned that doesn't somehow connect to the larger sort of conspiracy as a whole. Every little thing, every minor, all sort of links back and is all it's all connected, and it's really neat when it all comes together in the last 20 pages, which is a classic Alastair Reynolds. He writes books where there will be a seeming climax and you'll be like, wow, this is so cool, and then the last 10 pages cranks it up to 11 and flips it on its head, and the whole thing blows wide open, and you're just sort of in awe. So I'm going to go through the plot of it now and spoil the whole thing, but I'm going to not do so in the way that it's revealed throughout the story, because you are in the dark, much like the main character, the whole time. You're gaining evidence, pieces of information, slowly putting it together, and only at the end do you get the full picture. But I'm just going to go with the whole picture now, just so that I can have it on record in case I want to read the next series, the next books in the series whenever I get a hold of them sometime in the future. So the story doesn't actually start here, but the book doesn't start here, but the story starts with Philip Lascaux, who is mentioned in Revelation Space. He is one of the only guys to have gone into a shroud and have come out in one piece. So the shrouds, read the Revelation Space Trilogy to find out what the shrouds are. But basically, they're regions of space that are shrouded by some sort of alien species, and people have been sending things in. Those things come out damaged or destroyed or not at all. But and same with people. But Philip Lascaux is the first guy to be able to go in, and he comes out seemingly intact, although his mind's pretty screwed up. And so he had to be put into a sort of an institute and looked after. But people are trying to get information out of him, like, what did you see in there? How did you get in and get back out? Like, what are your secrets? And it turns out that because people really wanted to figure out what he knew, they murdered him / force uploaded his mind. So in this world, there is a procedure where you can scan someone's brain, and in scanning their brain, it destroys it. But however, it uploads the patterns so that you have a digital copy of that consciousness, and they call that an alpha level. It is, for all intents and purposes, the actual mind or soul of this individual. There are things called beta levels, which are sort of algorithms that replicate the behavior of individuals, but are not as what's the word? Not as real. Not as there's no consciousness behind them that there is in an alpha level. So an alpha level is created of this person's mind that has been sort of warped by these shrouds. They put that mind inside of a machine. They send that machine back into the shrouds, and it comes back out again. But this time again, it's changed for a second time, and this being that had once been Philip Lascaux, messed up by shrouds multiple times, had his mind uploaded to the cloud, or digitized, now in a machine, gets put in this place called the Sylvester Institute for Applied Mentation or something, artificial mentation, and is studied. And this being becomes known as the clockmaker because it sort of it just creates clocks, like really intricate analog clockwork clocks, and so it becomes known as the clockmaker. However, the clockmaker sort of goes rogue, and some of the machines it creates explode or end up murdering some people. And there's this big crisis on the hands of the police force panoply, for which these prefects, these police officers, work for. And this is all 11 years before the story starts, where they're trying to contain the clockmaker because it's on a genocidal rampage. However, using this old mothballed ship that has sort of a ram scoop, they use the ram scoop's magnetic field to lock the the clockmaker in place and safely contain it. But that does tons of mental damage to all the people that are within this magnetic field, and all those people, though they live and they're spared the being murdered by the clockmaker, they have to go to a hospice and live out the rest of their lives there. And it just so happens that the prefect in charge of all this, or not in charge, but who came up with this plan and carried it out, is Tom Dreyfus, whose wife was one of the ones affected by this. And he's so torn up about this that he has his memories sort of suppressed of that, so he can get back to work as a regular policeman. So throughout this whole book, he's sort of remembering some of his wife, but he thinks that she died during this event. He doesn't realize what he did to her and everyone else in order to save them. And he doesn't find out until the very end, when he gets his memories back, because the clockmaker's back and they think he needs this memory. So anyway, so that's sort of the background information that because the memories are suppressed, we don't find out until the very end, when all this background information is revealed. So our story starts in the present timeline with one of the senior prefects, this guy Gaffney, who is the head of security, and he is contacted by this entity called Aurora. And Aurora's like, I know the Glitter Band. So the Glitter Band is 10,000 habitats in orbit around Yellowstone, which is like the hub of human civilization in this time period. So all this takes place in like these habitats floating in space, not really on a planet, and they're all they all are sort of, they're independent city states. They each can have their own government and their own rules and own laws. The only law that they all have to abide by is that they have to let all of their citizens have voting rights, because it's a democracy. They're demarchists, democratic anarchy. So there's like no ruler, except this police force, this panoply that these prefects will go out and enforce the rights of all the citizens to vote on major issues. There's no centralized government at all. Anyways, so Gaffney, he's kind of like, he sees some of the habitats. Some of the habitats are voluntary tyrannies. Some of them are like torture states. Some of them are awful. And he's like, we can't be having this. We need a benevolent dictator to come in and set this right. And that's when Aurora shows up and is like, hey, I know something bad's coming, and the only way the Glitter Band is going to survive is if I take over, and sort of rule benevolently, and keep this thing from happening. So Gaffney is like, okay, I'm on your side. What do you need? I'll tear apart Panoply from the inside. So that's our main antagonists, is this entity Aurora, and Gaffney, this sort of mole inside of Panoply. So what is this thing coming that Aurora sees? Well, it turns out she captured these conjoiners, who are a different subset of humanity. They are a hive mind, we'll just say. We won't get into the conjoiners. But anyway, she captures a conjoiner ship, which has aboard it this machine called Exordium, I think it's called, yeah. Where these conjoiners, these hive mind people, are sort of in stasis sleep and are dreaming of the future selves, and it's somehow they can see the future, and they tell Aurora, like, we see a time of plague coming that will destroy the Glitter Band, and she doesn't want this because it will destroy her. So because Aurora's main objective is survival, she wants to take over the Glitter Band to ensure that she survives and that this time of plague doesn't come. The plague, of course, is the melding plague, which, again, different later books in this series, the melding plague is a huge thing. Aurora's plan. Aurora is one of the original uploaded minds called the 80, where these first alpha level intelligences, these first 80 people had their minds uploaded, and seemingly something went wrong, and all of these uploaded minds sort of froze up or just went insane. But it turns out Aurora sort of faked going insane so that she could have freedom and sort of live in the shadows, and that's what she's been doing the past 55 years. However, with this new information, she's like, something terrible is going to come. I need to survive, and in order to survive, I need to be in control of the entire Glitter Band, so I can kill all of humanity, and then we won't contract any plagues because I won't let anyone in. She doesn't tell Gaffney that she's going to kill everyone, of course. But anyway, so that's sort of the main setup. So however, she knows about the Clockmaker, and she fears the Clockmaker because the Clockmaker is also a super intelligent uploaded mind, but also one that has been altered by the Shroud twice. And so she fears the Clockmaker. So the whole story starts with her destroying a habitat where she thinks the Clockmaker is, and in doing so, she sort of frames these other people, and that sort of sets Prefect Dreyfus off. Whereas most detectives would be like, okay, open and shut case. Like, there was this trade deal gone wrong, and people were angry, so they destroyed the place. But no, he picks up a few different things, and he realizes there's more to this than that, and that's how he gets on Aurora's trail. So there's this other prefect, Thalia Ing. She's like brand new. Her father, Jason Ing, had committed suicide because he made some huge mess up and was sort of a corrupt cop. So she's got a lot to prove. Turns out, at the end, it's revealed, because everything's connected, that her father was actually a good cop and was murdered by this group called Firebrand, who was this super black cell of Panoply, who was studying the Clockmaker, and Jason had gotten too close to the truth, and so they had to be silenced. Anyway, so this Thalia Ing person, she doesn't realize her father was innocent until the very end of the book. She is in charge of fixing this loophole in the democratic code. So there's this loophole that people can sort of cheat democracy. They need her to fix it. So she fixes the code, and instead of just uploading it to all 10,000 habitats, she's like, no, I'm going to go to the 4 sort of oldest habitats, the ones with really weird infrastructure and architecture, and I'm going to test it on those 4. And it turns out the code's been altered by Gaffney to sort of give Aurora control of these habitats. So had Thalia not been as good at her job, or as she was, if she had just uploaded it to everything, then the book would just be over. Aurora would have takeover of the entire glitter band. But as it is, only 4 habitats get taken over, and Thalia the whole time is trapped inside one. And interspersed throughout the book, we have her POV where she manages to hide and save a handful of civilians while watching the entire habitat get destroyed by Aurora, who is harvesting all the people, plants, materials, infrastructure, architecture, harvesting everything and throwing it into the manufactories in the habitat to produce these they're called weevils, these robots that will go out into space and go to other habitats and infect them. It's very much a viral infection where each habitat is a cell, and these weevils are viruses that replicate, go to other cells, infect them, replicate, and go to other cells. And that's Aurora's plan. Since she didn't take over all at once, she's just got these 4. She's going to make those 4 into 8 to 16, etc., and exponentially take over the whole thing. So while that's taking place, we have the Supreme Prefect, Jane, who, because everything's connected, she has something called a scarab at the back of her neck. It's something the clockmaker put in place, and it is no one's allowed near her. She's not allowed to sleep. She has all these things in place that if any of these rules are broken, the scarab will kill her, like explode her brain. So throughout the whole book, she's getting more and more stressed. She hasn't slept for 11 years. She's been kept awake by drugs and whatnot. And because of the increased stress of this huge thing going on in the glitter band, the scarab is starting to change, and the people who are like her doctors are thinking, oh, it's going to kill her. We have to do something. And they've been planning for 11 years how to get this thing off of her. So that part of the plot line is them removing the scarab and sort of saving her. And of course, Gaffney, the bad guy inside Panoply, uses that to sort of as a pretext to get her out of control, because she's really good at her job. Not to put himself in charge, but to put someone else in charge that he can manipulate more. And so there's all sorts of complexities, which I'm getting way too much into the details anyways. But they managed to get the scarab off Jane's head by the room she's in. They build blades into the walls, and the blades like an iris intersect and chop her head off, and then her body that still has the scarab on the neck explodes, and then they rush in and get her head and plug it up to machines and grab what's left of her body and try to repair it and connect her head back to her body. Like the science in this world is very much like super advanced, like transhuman, like immortality is sort of a given. So they can do this. And of course, while they're doing this, Gaffney runs in and grabs her head and unattaches it from everything and uses it to escape Panoply. Yeah, so there's a lot of moments like that when you're like, everything's going to go super, super wrong here. And I've skipped over so many different things. But basically, in the end, Dreyfus, being the amazing detective he can, along with his deputy Sparver, they figure out where the clockmaker is. They go and find it. He wants to communicate with it to use it against Aurora. Gaffney's tracking him, finds him, attacks him, and in attacking Dreyfus, the damage to the facility, releases the clockmaker, and then the clockmaker goes out and sort of uploads its mind to the habitats and sort of spreads its consciousness across various habitats, so that if one habitat is destroyed, the clockmaker won't be destroyed. Aurora does the same thing. So because of the time latency, think of each of the habitats and the sort of network nodes throughout this band of habitats as neurons in a brain, and because they are like thousands of kilometers apart, there's that latency, that time lag, and so their sort of conscious clock speed will be very slow. So in the end, the clockmaker and Aurora are now some like they're ghosts in the machine. They're out there in the system, waging this. I think they describe it as like a chess match where you can only make one move per year, sort of thing. So that's how it ends. Is because of the amazing detective work of Dreyfus, he's able to get to the clockmaker before Aurora does, and sort of set up this continuing battle between the clockmaker and Aurora. And I didn't realize. I know it was meant to be a one-off. I don't know if it actually was meant to be, because it ends very much like they're still out there fighting. Like, who knows who will win? But also, Dreyfus is like, well, there's still one more mystery to solve, and that's who killed Philip Lascaux and sort of created the clockmaker. He's like, that's my next case. Anyway, so that's the Prefect. I think it's a wonderful book. I love Alastair Reynolds. I love this world, this sort of utopian future society where humans can be anything and do anything. And this is very much the height of like the glitter band in the Revelation space universe is called the Rust Belt, because of the melding plague that comes to destroy it. So this is very much humanity at its technological peak. I don't know if I can actually say that, but yeah, it's really cool. I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. This made me want to go back and read more Alastair Reynolds, like Chasm City is one that's definitely on my list now to reread. There's a really cool world, the Revelation space world. Yeah, so that was that one.